Hello friends, excited to finally have an excuse to use this green screen here, bringing you another Dota 2 video in which we're going to be taking a look at Boxi's Offlane class on GamerzClass. So when these guys originally contacted me to do this video, my initial response was, hey, do you guys know this situation that I'm in with the legality of the hobos within my city? You know, there's litigation, there's lawyers, there's juries, there's judges. I'm paying all of them out the wazoo right now, and I could use some help. And they said, yes, Jenkins, like this is actually why we've contacted you. And then they said, okay, but there's a catch. And I was thinking, oh no, they're going to make me review a BSJ video. And I couldn't bear it. But then they came out and said, okay, you need to look at Boxi's guide on Offlane. And I thought, this is great. This is like killing two rocks with one bird because Boxi is one of my favorite offlaners currently. Team Liquid just won ESL 1 Germany. Taiga and Boxi are constantly swapping roles, which is super insane. Sometimes he plays position 4. He's always first phase banned in tournaments, which is insane in the offlane position because that just doesn't happen. People don't really care that much about offlaners. And Boxi is just super high rank, and he's been that way for years now. So this guy is insanely good, and I'm excited to show you what are some of my favorite lessons from this guy. The first thing that I want to show you is a clip where Boxi is just talking about how he prioritizes picking his hero in terms of countering the enemy game plan as opposed to countering a hero one-to-one or something like that. And this is definitely something that I think I needed to hear because I definitely focus a little bit too much, I think, on countering heroes one-to-one. So basically, in this game, he explained that he already had Crystal Maid and Mirana picked, and so he was second phase picking as an offlaner. And the enemy team, of course, they picked their two supports. They had Tiny and Oracle. And his pick is Beastmaster. And so my initial thoughts are, you can purge the Beastmaster Roar with Oracle. So, you know, it can't possibly be that good. And then Tiny has an AoE stun for all of the summons. And so it didn't really make that much sense. For me, I'm like, okay, this is a pretty bad Beastmaster game. But listen to the way that he thinks about it.
Based on the enemy heroes, like Oracle and Tiny, it's extremely hard for these heroes to deal with minions. It's very hard for Oracle to deal with the Hawk Vision. He wants to like sit behind people. Maybe he's like hiding in the trees above a tower or behind a carry that's farming. You just put a hawk on him and you can kill him really easily. It's very easy to like even get a blink and roar him. I think Tiny is a hero that needs to get his blink. So he's also a hero that's going to be like farming on waves quite a bit. And I think it's really hard for him to deal with Beastmaster minions. You get like a Necro book before he has blink. He's not going to be able to combo all your creeps.
So basically, he's thinking about how Oracle likes to play team fights, how Tiny plays before he gets his Blink Dagger. Like, he's thinking a lot about the different kind of time windows in the game, as opposed to, oh, a maxed out Oracle will purge Beastmaster Roar every single time. Okay, well, you also have a Hawk, and he's not going to have an Ether Lens. He's not necessarily going to have a Blink or something like that, because it's a position 5 Oracle, right? Like, he's thinking about it from an extremely practical standpoint, as opposed to a super theoretical one. Like in a vacuum, yes, Beastmaster is possibly countered by Oracle, but in a real game, it's just not that way at all. And that's super interesting to me, and I definitely needed to hear that because I'm always that guy that is just counter-picking heroes. And he even says it with another game, this next example here. Let's see. This one was super interesting, and I think probably more game-winning than the Beastmaster.
Towers in the early game. They might have like strong heroes to fight with. I think like Kunkka is a really strong hero to fight against people who wants to play aggressive. But it's really hard for Kunkka to take his own towers or for him to like play aggressive on you. So you know that. So I already know that like they can't take my towers. It's going to be a little bit of a slower game if we want to play slow. If we want to run at them, they're going to fight at us. But it's hard for them to like fight us back because they also need to farm. Both Dark Willow and Darkseer are heroes.
So basically, in this game, he picked Magnus. He actually had last pick. He said that he went to the bathroom and then ended up getting last pick. And the enemy team has Faceless Void, Darkseer, Kunkka as their cores. So ridiculously strong team fight, right? You don't necessarily want to fight into this. So, you know, the way maybe I would think about Magnus is they're hard to fight into. They better team fight. Is there really a point in playing to team fight them? And he's thinking, okay, well, how does Magnus play with the Empower? He plays a slow-paced game. He plays to out-farm you. He plays his side of the map, secures his own triangle, and the enemy team, well, they have no tower push, so they can't do anything about that. The next thing that I want to show you is something that is incredibly important if you are an offlaner, if you are any sort of kill threat hero. And I remember back in the day, I would call this the Pudge Effect because Pudge was the only hero that I could play. And the effect was basically the fact that if the enemy team didn't know where you were effectively everywhere. They'd be so scared of you, right? It's like some Scream horror movie bullshit going on, essentially. So here you could see he's talking about basically the way that he moves on the map to keep that fear factor alive on the map for the enemy team by essentially killing people. And it's so funny, like how extreme it is what he does. But you have to do this against extremely good players. So take a look at this.
Is that skipping ahead under the spawn periods? You can just follow my movement on the map and see that I'm never showing on any lane. And now
so he talks about it here.
I tell my Lina, come kick the enemy's wards. I try and be sneaky. I know, like, I don't need to be there.
And then he basically says he walks through his jungle. As soon as he kills the Bat Rider top, he walks through his jungle. Maybe farms a couple of creeps here or there.
I can farm like a few camps on the way. But the most important thing is that I am at that area in the map where the enemy is going to be. So I run over, I tell my Lina, come kill somebody bottom.
And then immediately somebody shows up bot. Because like he knows that this fight just happened top. So what are the chances somebody's going to go back up there? They're going to think that you're hiding up there as a blink hero.
Spirit starts farming. I get a free kill basically. He has no idea if I ran to bottom or if I'm still hiding top. The Morphling is also playing scared. Mid they're playing scared and we get this kill.
So they kill that guy, and honestly, that kill is less important to me than the fact that this dude just farmed bot because he was afraid that Boxi would be top. And now you can bet your ass this guy's going to respawn, and he's not farming anywhere because he's going to be like, dude, Boxi's going to be here. This guy's reading my movements. And then you could see that Morphling was already scared. So essentially, he is slowly but surely limiting the enemy team's farm by constantly creating this fear factor on the map by just running between the lanes. If he killed somebody bot, he runs to top. This is with a lead, of course. I think without a lead, you're more the one that's like trying to find the pickoffs and stuff when the enemy team is split. But when you have a lead, basically what you do is you run out of vision. That's the only time where you'll farm your own jungle. Only if you're waiting for somebody to show somewhere, and then you make your way to the other side of the map, you kill somebody, you just rinse and repeat that until the enemy team literally doesn't farm and sits in their base. So the next thing that I want to show you legitimately blew my mind because I have been preaching about pulling creeps, cutting creeps in the offlane, and how it wins you any lane. I've been preaching this for years now. Anybody that's watched the Dota Alchemy podcast, that has watched me do replay reviews, knows that in the offlane, I'm always like, dude, if you ever lose a lane, the only reason that you lost that lane is because you didn't pull creeps. And Boxi in this video basically is showing an example of how he transitions a, relatively normal second wave creep cut and camp block, that sort of thing, into getting a lot more out of the lane in what is supposed to be a losing lane. So he's Doom plus Nyx versus Arc Warden Sand King. This is a losing lane. They're against two heroes that own melee heroes, particularly Arc Warden will dumpster melee heroes. And Boxi is sitting at like 40% HP. And watch what he does. There's always this inevitable double wave that happens when you do these kind of creep cutting, creep pulling shenanigans. And watch what Boxi does to abuse this.
He can do whatever he wants. I'm really happy. Now I have a really big wave that's pushing out.
Just presses Scorched and runs at him.
Even though they're stronger than us, they can't like fight us because all these creeps are just gonna run over them. So I also use my spell to push out the lane, and we get an even bigger wave pushing on them. And now Arc Warden is completely stuck under the tower.
Good.
Like
That's
he has
so
to farm
good.
his creeps. There's no way he can help his Sand King, which means that we can then pull the hard camp, which means that this wave is gonna die to the hard camp, which means.
So essentially, he uses the double wave, knows that it's going to be coming, and then preemptively presses Scorched Earth to run at the Arc Warden, who can't turn around and hit him because then the wave will start hitting the Arc Warden. And he does this preemptively for a specific purpose. And he actually talks about this in another one of these videos where he basically says there's this HP threshold where people get to like 60, 70% HP where they all of a sudden feel like they're in the danger zone. They feel like if they do go on you, there is a threat that they can die, because often heroes in Dota have enough damage to kill you from like 60% HP, but not 100. So basically what he does is he uses the double wave to get a bunch of free harass on the Arc Warden, and then once the Arc Warden gets to the creep wave, that would keep him safe, where he could turn around and hit Boxi. He's 60% HP, so he's no longer feeling safe enough to do that. And then that lets Boxi, in turn, push the wave with the exact same spell that he was just harassing the Arc Warden with. And then pushing that wave, all of a sudden, obviously, gets him all of those last hits, and then also lets him pull the camp, because the Arc Warden is busy dealing with this massive super wave under his tower, so it's a 2v1 at the pull, and he gets to pull the next wave. For years now, I don't think I've done this intentionally. I think after this point when I creep cut, I usually play the lane normally. Like, I just lane and hit the enemies, and I'm like, all right, now I'm level 2, level 3, I'm good to go. But Boxi is getting essentially twice the effectiveness out of creep cutting than I am. So I 100% need to start integrating this into my play, and I think you should too if this isn't something that you do. Probably the most shocking thing that I learned while watching this entire guide was actually one of the last 2 videos. Interestingly enough, it's actually a video about economics, and you'll see exactly why that's interesting in a second here. I was watching this video and I noticed that if between this the last shot and this one, it goes to this kind of forward-facing view of Boxi looking at Dota, and I could tell you that Dota is photoshopped onto that screen, and that is not Boxi. That is definitely Alan Nahaz Bester. He did not retire from casting to be a full-time professor. He 100% is working with Team Liquid, and I think this confirms it. I think this confirms he's the Team Liquid analyst. Boxi had to play a game. He had the squirts. He had some sort of problem, and they needed somebody for this shot. Nahaz, yeah, it has to be you. The back of your head looks exactly like Boxi's. Come, sub in, and there he is. I mean, you can even see the keybinds. There are no keys set to any of the abilities. That 100% is Nahaz. Boxi obviously has keybinds. He's a professional player. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate you, and I hope to see you in another video.